All right. Okay. Well, we'll get started for today, and thank you all for coming and joining us for another in our webinar series. It's a little bit different this month. You're used to normally having Phil and I chatting in amongst ourselves, but Phil's taken the back seat today and sitting there listening to us all. But today I've got Paul Jansz joining us to have a chat about some other stuff. So I think, as most of you know, when we do our webinars, we spend a lot of time primarily trying to talk about the different ways that we can help protect your clients from financial distress and the different options that are available across the gambit of insolvency options there. Today, however, we thought Hank and I had a real desire as part of what we do for our referrers, and that is to provide some not only assistance in how to help your clients, but in how to help yourself. So today it's a great pleasure that we've got Paul Jansz joining us. Now, Paul's with Professional Partners, and he's spent over 22 years working deep within the accounting industry, both in Australia, New Zealand, Asia and UK, and throughout the US. Paul runs his own coaching and training company to the accounting industry, and is led by a private equity firm which is focused in the accounting industry for the last 10 years, and continues to focus on providing solutions to accounting firms and how they can grow and develop their business. So today our focus is not going to be so much on the insolvency industry and what can be done to help clients. Today is really going to be more focused on what options are available to you as professionals, and particularly in the accounting industry, in how you can grow and develop your business. Now, we've had the great pleasure, Paul. Welcome along, mate. You've been sitting there quietly while I've been doing all the talking.
Thank you.
But Paul and I, in this lovely digital world, really only met each other last year once everyone went online, and Paul's runs a number of his own webinars called Chewing the Accounting Fat and the Virtual Lunch Series. And we met through that. So we actually spent more time talking to each other online for the first 18 months, and really only got to meet each other in person, 2 months ago? Yeah. And here we are back on screens again. So I guess, Paul, let's get stuck into just sort of your side of things. And I guess if I can start with one of the webinars that I did listen into was that you spent a bit of time talking about accounting firms being stuck in the desert. I think that's a really good place to start. So again, welcome. And you want to just talk to our team here about what being in the desert actually means from your point of view.
Yeah, thanks, mate. And thank you for having us, having me in particular. And yeah, stuck in the desert is an interesting one, and it got raised only, I think, a couple of months ago with in our Chewing the Accounting Fat show, when Jason Cunningham, who runs the practice, I coached them back 15 years ago, and he brought that up, which was quite interesting, about stuck in the desert. And the whole idea, the thought process was, as accounting firms, sometimes we're too small to do certain things, and sometimes we're too big to do other things. So what do we do? And there's probably only 3 ways that if you are stuck in the desert, the whole idea, the thought process is, if you're stuck in the desert and you want to stay in the desert, or you're going to die, you can either turn around and go back, or you can push through and move forward. And I suppose the whole idea of that came around when we used to do a lot of work with a lot of accounting firms, probably around this time of the year as well, when you're planning for the new financial year, and what does the next 12 months look like? What does the next 3 years look like in terms of planning? And what do you want to do? And I suppose if I give the story of probably where Jason was with their firm, they were a 2-partner firm, probably around 11 team members at the time. I think a lot of firms, certainly from my experience, a lot of firms struggle to break through that $1 million revenue barrier. And then they need to have the mindset of, which way do I want to go? Do I want to continue to grow and add more to the top line, which we know will add more cost to the bottom line, so therefore less profit? Or do I want to take a step backwards maybe, and instead of being $1 million in revenue, do I want to be $800,000 in revenue and increase my profit margin by another 20%? and that's entirely up to each business owner, each firm that we've worked with over the years. And I can't make that decision for them.
No.
But we talk about, what do you want? What does that look like? And I suppose we've done a lot of work in the past. Even I released a podcast yesterday with Ali, and Ali Garrett was talking about, again, her brand and how important it was for her to work through her brand, and what does that mean to her current clients, and what does that mean to new clients, and the way that she's put herself out there to pick up new clients. So she wants to push through. She wants to go to that next stage, but not everyone wants that.
No, and I guess no one really wants to stay in the desert and just die on the vine. Although I must admit, through the last 12 months, some days I've actually wondered whether that might be a better option. Talking to a bunch of accountants over the journey, it's been a really horrific time trying to deal with bringing up the JobKeeper last month, and now they're playing catch up from losing 3 months of dealing with JobKeeper. But if we want to start with, I guess, the turnaround and go back side, what, in your experience, what does that often look like? Like, say, if someone's gone, I don't want to grow, I don't want to get any bigger, but I do want to be more profitable with what I've got. What can that look like from your experience?
Yeah, look, how much time we got?
We got time.
We can get quite deep into this, I suppose, and it's it all comes back down to, and I've probably worked with firms that have been in that situation where, there's this, and I'll sort of say it again, the $1 million. I want to hit that $1 million. It's so important mentally to get to $1 million firm. But at the same time, I've worked with a lot of $1 million firms that have very little profit. So what are we doing this for at the end of the day? So if you want to go backwards, there's a number of different key areas where, dropping revenue to increase profit margins is a part of a growth. Growth always doesn't need to come from the top line. And sometimes, I look at and no disrespect to anyone that is in the top 100 BRW, but it's all based on the top line. It's all based on revenue and revenue per partner, as opposed to profit margin. We don't show profits. But certainly the firms that I've worked with, profit's more important, rather than the top line. So you do really need to get that focus into, if that's what you want to do. And I've worked with, I can think of one here in Melbourne where we've done that work where we chose to go backwards. So backwards in terms of revenue, but forwards in terms of profit.
And I think you've got to be a bit careful about saying going backwards, don't you, really? Because backwards doesn't mean bad. It just means that it almost a right sizing is one of the more fancy terms that people are using for it now, isn't it? Yeah.
100%. And I think the coaching company that I had back then was called GPL, and the G was for growth. And there's all sorts of different types of growth, whether that's growth in revenue, growth in profit, growth in systems, growth in... So we covered the whole gambit, not just growth in revenue, because most people just engage with that growth in revenue. And there is, as most people would know on this webinar, that there's probably 10 other things that you could focus on in terms of growing people, culture. There's so many things, your brand, there's so many things that you can focus on. So hopefully there's some, I suppose we're pointing out a few things there that you could do. The strategies that fall sort of behind that are, again, up to the firm. I am looking at Anna right now, so sorry, I know I'm going to use you as an example, but if Anna's sitting there saying, look, I don't want to go to a $1.3 million firm because I'm going to have to probably reinvest. There's more people. I might need a new office. They're all costs. So what I might prefer to do is I might prefer to reduce my fees and streamline my systems and the process of how I do work, and then therefore my profit margin can increase by 20%, which means there's 20% of more dollars to go around to fulfill what I want to do, and I can take those holidays, and there's less pressure and all the other things that are more important than the top line of fees.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that, again, as we've said, pretty much everyone here knows how to do this for another client, but there's that old saying that you don't buy a mechanic's car, because we generally have a bad habit of not working on our own businesses. So it's and this is just highlight stuff for people to have a think about and all the rest of it. But So if we look at the other side now, where the growth side, and the other, we're using the analogy of going through the desert, is that we're pushing through. Pushing through, as you said, has often got more costs involved in it. There's more people involved. So that can be quite daunting in itself, how you do that. So can we spend a little bit of time now just talking through, again, at a high level, because we can't do it for an individual business, but from your experience, what are some of the steps or things that people need to look at as they start to work through that part of the pushing through?
Yeah, I think there's different ways that you can push through, but the first thing that I would probably recommend is, if you're going to push through with, let's say, different service offerings, and that is to go and talk to your clients about what they're looking for, what they like, what they don't like. Now, I don't know many businesses or accounting firms that actually do that. I know we did a lot of that back probably 10, 12 years ago with the firms that we were working with at that stage. But I call it my Richard Branson theory. Anyone that's heard me talk about that, Branson was very good at coming to Australia and surveying clients and found out what they like and what they don't like, and provide a service to people that are going to buy that, as opposed to something that we think is a good idea, but we can't sell. And I think that's really important, to find out the problems, the pains, whatever it may be with the clients at the moment. And in particular, if you're trying to target a particular segmentation of clients, there's a lot of firms out there that would just focus on the medical sector as an example. So if that's what you want to push through with, go and find out again what you want, what your clients like, what they don't like. They'll always tell you they don't like fees. Okay, so that's always number one. I associate fees to service. So I always go, okay, is our service at the highest possible level? Because that's how I've always looked at it. People only complain about a fee if they're not happy with the service.
Yep.
So again, but by asking that question, you put yourself out there to open up, be authentic, and find out, you really want to take feedback. And I think every time that we've done that for accounting firms, and that's where I suppose a lot of accounting firms may engage with a company to do that, as opposed to going out and doing that, because it's a time factor.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the clients love being asked the question. I think the critical factor is when that comes back into the boardroom, let's say it's about how you then implement what they are asking for.
Yes.
Yeah. If you don't implement it, it makes you look worse, because you've gone out there and asked, they've given you feedback, and then you're not implementing. And I think there comes, again, a time factor falls into that. But we do hear that a lot. That's probably the greatest excuse of everything, is I don't have time.
Yeah.
But the mindset needs to be, how do I create time? How do I work smarter and not harder? All little, they've been thrown around for a long time now by different gurus of our industry, I suppose, but they're simple things that we can work through.
Yeah, okay. And one of the other things I heard you talk about is, particularly in a growth phase, is talking about moving from the technician to the entrepreneur. And, you see this in a lot of businesses where we almost promote someone to one level above their competency level. But yeah, as us as, even with Hank and I, when we started the business, there was only 5 of us, and we were on the tools every day. And then when you sort of get to, becoming a national firm, there's a whole lot of other skills and things that we need to do. So moving from that technician to probably an entrepreneur is probably the right word, and the word that you use is a big part of any growth strategy. Is that sometimes you can be the best tax accountant on the planet and save everyone $1, and that's what clients love. But if you're trying to grow your business, then you can't necessarily be on the tools every day. And I was talking to one of our accounts the other day, and his goal is the next 12 months, how do I get off the tools?
Yes.
And he wants to get off it. So again, from your coaching experience over the years, is there anything that you can sort of expand on with the guys to start thinking about in that area?
Yeah, look, it's a tough one, but I suppose the whole that moving from the technician through to the manager, through to the entrepreneur, that's been stolen from Michael Gerber. So And anyone that hasn't read the E-Myth or the Re-Myth Revisited or all the other 10 that he's got out there,
Yep.
I would suggest that you go and read it. It's a fantastic book, and in the first 20 pages you'll go, that sounds like me. How does he know he's talking about me? Because I am the technician. And unfortunately, that's how we start businesses. You've got to start businesses where we're all on the tools. If you're the hairdresser, you cut hair until you get to the stage where, that you think, well, hang on, I need to employ somebody else now to cut hair, or an apprentice to sweep the floors. And how do I continue to build up that? And now I need to sharpen my skills to become the manager. And once I've got that, then suddenly I'm managing 50% of my time, and I'm cutting 50% of my time, but I'm also working on strategy. So that then falls into the mindset of the entrepreneurial mindset. And then what do you want next? So I suppose the whole idea of that is, again, what do you want next? Do you want, if I live in Ascot Vale and I've got a firm in Ascot Vale, and do I want to then have a firm in Moonee Ponds and a firm in Essendon, and I want to sort of dominate that whole northwestern area within a 10-kilometre radius? That's where the entrepreneurial mindset comes from. But again, not everyone wants that. But I think the idea of having the mindset, I think, is really important, because then it comes down to building systems. And if you can build systems, and that's what Gerber talks about, if you can build systems into your business, you've got to build a business that can run without you. And that's the mindset of it. So, again, ask yourself, can you take 4 weeks off? Can you take 1 week off? So there's a lot of people, even I saw our good mate, Rob Nixon, that was talking about this only a few weeks ago and he was talking about, can you take 12 weeks off? Can you take 12 weeks out of your business? And it's a really good question. And most of us would sit here and say, no, I can't. So therefore, if you can't, and again, it's again, changing that language to how can I, instead of adopting the can't mindset. So half glass empty to half glass full, and then creating that process where you can do that. And I think, the way that I think you mentioned Taryn was on here, but the way that the seamlesses work nowadays, and there's a lot of, TOA or seamless, there's a lot of companies out there that allow accounting firms now to create capacity by using those insourcing or outsourcing companies. And that's the system, again, that creates, so you can, I suppose going back, I'm trying to think, when I was doing road shows with Ed Chan back then, and Ed always talked about the grinder and finder and minder. Those were his terms back then. And if you're after people that can grind for you, so doing the work, that can all be done somewhere else. Okay. And I think that works really well. Back 10 years ago, we would have never thought about that. Again, the thought process of how do I give that to people? And there's a lot of offshoring companies now. But nowadays, I think it's becoming a part of the norm. And the fact is, working in an office, COVID proved we didn't need to be in an office to be productive, because we've got good systems. If we've got good systems, well, that allows us to then bring in other people to, hopefully you get the message of how the wheel is going to turn, which then allows the owners to do other things at higher levels and ideally take that time off. So it's all about the mindset side.
And if it's not your mindset, and I know, many years ago I used to have an accounting practice, and I don't pretend to be a tax expert, but I was good at finding the clients. So I made sure I had tax experts and the technicians around me to do that. So, but interestingly, you talk about that whole, we've learned that we don't need to be in the office now through COVID, and particularly for us here in Victoria, we had to find a way for nearly 20 weeks or whatever it was. So, but a big part of that in growing a business often is culture. And, I think I saw Melissa is on the call as well. And one of her podcasts talked about that actually that's the first thing that you need to, if you want to grow, you've got to have the right culture around you. So is there any sort of comments, probably stealing a little bit from Melissa or some of the other ones, but any comments around what you need to look for in that business? For me, culture is one of these new things, and we've certainly had to put some effort into it. But culture was come to work, have, do your job, go home, and that was good. But there's a lot more to it now. And is there anything that you can add in that area?
Yeah, I think if you talk about Melissa David, that session we ran with engagement, growth and engagement. So adding another key word in that, I suppose. And you're right, culture, even, when I was growing up, was about how we have drinks on a Friday night. And I'll guarantee you that's not what it's about. So, and there's a lot of us now as business owners, we really need to work hard in engaging with our team members, because we've got a little bit more grey hair than others, but the younger people coming through need to have greater engagement. And I think that's a key word. So I think breaking the word down and saying, right, how do I engage with my people? And even if, we're sitting here on the 17th, we're 13 days away from the end of the financial year. How many of us have actually worked through, let's call it a planning session, or a planning day, or a half day, or 2 days, to actually work through what does the next 12 months look like? Now, from a cultural point of view, team members in particular want to know where the business is heading. I think that's a key message. And one of the key things that I always found when I was doing this with a lot of firms is we don't know that. The partners don't share that with us. So what happens is we only get shared that when maybe we hand in our resignation, because most people are, there's always, people think the grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah.
There's always that, oh no, we value what you do, and we value what this is, or sometimes it's a little bit too late. So how can you be proactive with your mindset to say, well, guys, this is where we're heading, and this is what I'd like to share with you. And there's some really great firms out there nowadays that share everything. They share down to profits. And those firms that do that have got a different cultural mix within their business. Yep. And there's a lot more people that are then working for the business because they're more engaged. And I think the great part nowadays is if owners of businesses are looking to do that, there's some great software that can do that as well nowadays. So we've worked through this tech side where, I've done a little bit of work for a mate of mine's startup. I don't know if anyone's using it. I was going to call it as tech stack. I think people's sick of the word tech stack, but a program called Everperform. So check it out if you want to check it out. It's really good. It's about pulsing your team members, and you can do that daily. You can do it weekly. You can do it quarterly. And it's about finding out whether they're engaged, finding out whether they're happy. It's trying to find out what you end up doing is, and especially at this time of the year for a lot of firms, over the next probably 4 to 6 weeks, you'll start, well, most firms should be starting, but the old dreaded performance review. So again, the key word in there is review, and it's looking back.
Yeah. How
do we look forward? And if you were doing these engagement pulses, let's call it, throughout the year, you don't actually need to do a review. You talk about the performance of the individual moving forward. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the industry we're in is very much looking backwards. So you've got the ability to change that though by doing more proactive things to look forward. Yeah. And I know the firms that have used that in particular say to us, yeah, look, PJ, we've actually eliminated the need for the performance review because it's done weekly and quarterly. Everyone is aware of what targets they need to work towards and what their weaknesses are and how they're going to turn them into strengths. And we know if they're happy or not. Yeah. And it triggers us if they're a 8 out of 10 one week and they suddenly go to a 2 out of 10, well, it triggers the manager to go and have a conversation with that person. Just take them out for a coffee and is everything okay? Yeah. It's the care factor.
There's certainly a lot there. Now, you mentioned before that it's a part of what a firm's got to look at is that changing of the service offering and what new services might be available to a firm or that they might make available to their clients. And I know that at Professional Partners, you do a lot of work in that area in trying to look at those new service offerings. So just talk me through what you're meaning there in terms of you think accounting and tax, we do tax returns, we might do a little bit of review, we might do a bit of forward work, but what else is there that people can have a look at?
Yeah, I think more and more firms are wanting to be more proactive with their clients, and certainly the ones that we're working with want that. And I suppose that's what, coming off the coaching company that was on the Gold Coast, by doing our, call it our surveying of clients, back then we took 25 firms and we spoke to 20 of their clients, and there was a need back then for almost like a, call it a private equity offering that sat next to a firm's financial planning offering. I think over the last 2 years, I've seen a lot more accounting firms probably move away from financial planning, and probably because the new FACEA laws that come in, and they'd rather have an arm's length arrangement with a financial planner to offer financial services or wealth management services. But one of the key things that we did when it was on Valentine's Day 2019 was, when I came back to live in Melbourne, and C2 spoke to me about, look, if I was to rebuild what I'd built previously, where we worked with 350 firms, how would we do that differently? So I'm going to go back to what I mentioned before, which was we actually got firms together and said, if we were going to do this, how differently would we do it? Now, I use the modelling. I've done a fair bit of work with PwC in Sydney, their private client division. And what we adopted a similar mindset to what PwC Sydney does. And that day, there was 30 firms here in our office, in our training room. We said, look, I want you to start with an open mind, and I want to start with a blank canvas, but I also want you to find all the things that will go wrong, all the things that you believe won't make this work. But let's try and build the mindset to why it would work as well. And the great thing was that the firms split up. There may be some firms that actually joined us there. They split up into the two boardrooms. They came back, they presented to us all the different risks that were associated in offering a service like this. And then we went about mitigating all of those risks. And I think that's what the great thing was. So I think, again, it's not about going out there and creating a service offering that people may not want to buy. We got the feedback. The whole idea of this whole service offering was built by the firms, and it still continues to change. Every single week it changes because the firms want to see different things added to the service model, and therefore we just implement that and then allow the firms to run with that. So it's a totally, call it an outsourced model, similar to what they would do with a financial planning arm. So it just sits alongside. So that allows their clients to get access to opportunities or sharing opportunities that they may not get in the mainstream marketplace. And I think that's the great thing of what firms see. And I know there's a lot more firms that want to do that, but again, get stuck in the old, I won't say the desert, but they get stuck in the sand of, and like you mentioned before, with all the changes that came through COVID and the job keepers and so on and so on, that's been tough. And for all the firms, it's been really hard because, again, it's reactive work, but they need to do it. Then suddenly we get to May 15 and suddenly we get to June 30 tax planning and boom, it's all over. So I think, again, the idea was, and we've been successful in making sure we roll that out, is just offering something a little bit different,
right,
and making sure that firms are fully engaged in that process.
Excellent. Well, and I certainly know that you certainly drive engagement quite a lot in everything that you're doing there. So it's a good opportunity to look at that. And I think that's a big part of when you look at different models now, is that you don't need to be the expert in everything. You bring in the people that you need and bolt it on where you need to. And continuing with sales pitches, obviously that's what we're there for, is to help for that distress stuff. And you guys are there more on the growth and positive side. So now we did in the webinar, we talked, in the invite to the webinar, we wanted to talk about digital. And it's very clear from this here that, digital is a whole new concept for me. I thought I was digitally savvy because I've got a personal Facebook and I've got a corporate LinkedIn. But apparently that's nowhere near enough anymore. And certainly our marketing manager is often talking about all these other different things that we can do. So, and again, in one of your webinars, I heard you talking about, or one of your shows, I heard you talking about the using the digital world, and not so much for the internal stuff. So I'm talking more about how you grow your business and how you define new clients. Internally, we're always looking at new systems to make it more efficient and more, and upgrading that sort of stuff. But outwardly focused, looking at digital technology and the socials and all that sort of stuff, there seems to be a lot more opportunity than I'm aware of. That's for sure. Again, I thought I was really cool that I could actually use Zoom and Teams now, but apparently I go home to my daughter and they're doing it and fixing it on me daily. So really, that's not that cool anymore, I'm told.
Are you saying you haven't done a TikTok with your daughter?
I have done TikToks.
Oh,
yeah. No, I've got 10 views on one of my dances. But she's on a very limited, she's not allowed to have a big group. So we didn't find out how big my dance could get. But yes, no, I've done a couple of TikToks, but I wouldn't have thought that would be something I could use for business. So it's a good segue into it. And I don't know that TikTok is, but what are the things that we can be doing from a digital's that point of view that might be more effective for businesses than we thought?
Yeah, look, I'll speak from exactly what we did with the professional partners, and I think, and my hair's not too far grey from yours, and we are a different age group, and that's where bringing in different expertise. But that digital space now, if we're talking about digital marketing in particular, I think one of the critical things is, and that I found out when I first tested was, and this is not difficult, so I'm going to share all the stuff that we've done with professional partners in creating, we kicked it off with podcasts. It's about content. So it's about driving content. And again, the podcast that I released yesterday, it was the first one I did with a video as well, a video podcast. It was with Ali Garrett. So if any of you guys have not seen it, go online, have a look at it. We've got our own Professional Partners Plus TV channel on YouTube as well. It's up there. And that 30 minutes that I did with Ali will be sensational for anyone that is thinking about how to position their brand and how to start creating content as well, because she goes into that a fair bit of detail and what she's done with her firm in South Australia. But when you're creating content, whether it be auditory or whether it be visual, we decided that that's what we needed to do, because we wanted to find, it was about brand presence and brand trust. So if the wider market doesn't actually know you, how do they get to know you?
Yeah. And
that's the power of social media. Every single one of us is on this nowadays. And whether you're sorry, I've just triggered something there that I shouldn't have done.
Showing our grey hair again.
Exactly.
Touch a computer and it blows up.
But the idea is that anything that comes to us nowadays, the first thing we do is we go to a Google search. And I think that's just how we live nowadays. And therefore, if someone, whether it's a team member, whether it's a client, and Ali talks about this as well in the podcast, but if anything we do, and if you go and search for something and there isn't a brand presence, I think people start questioning, is that the company I want to be associated with? Because what you have got the ability to do with even these sorts of things, Zoom allows us now to, you can record yourself 20 times and then have something in an MP4, and then you can post it out straight away on social media. Yeah. So the access to the platforms, which doesn't cost you anything, is phenomenal. When we started our podcast, again, I use a platform called Anchor. And for those of you there's a few of you online that I probably have interviewed as well. Anchor is free. Okay, so if you want to start your own podcast, just to kick things off, you can go to Anchor, download it, set yourself up as a user, set yourself up as a company. Anchor is owned by Spotify. So when you create your podcast, you can edit everything within the platform. Not that I do it, but I have a team here that does it. But you add music, you can do everything you want to do, and then you push it out. It automatically gets pushed out on Spotify, and it gets automatically pushed out on Apple Podcasts. That's where everyone listens to podcasts. So even if you want to start with something and test the market, you could do that. But it is about driving content, because that's what social media is about. Now, your content for LinkedIn may be different to your content with Instagram. Again, Instagram is visuals. I saw one of the firms, if Mel David's on here, I saw Client Partners did a TikTok yesterday. But again, it's just about having fun and putting it out there. But it's the virality, if that's a word, I think it is, of how that goes viral. That's probably a better way to describe it, by using that type of mechanism and, you know, the likes and the comments. And again, that causes things to go viral. So my recommendation would be just to get out there and do something, but get your brand presence. If you're the head of your brand, people want to see you. People want to see you. They want to listen to you. They want to trust you. And as we all know, while selling is a bit of a dirty word, people buy from people that they trust.
Yeah. So even that, just for me, blows my mind that really from a professional services firm doing TikToks, like, to me, that's kids in a bedroom playing around and doing their dances and, you know, roping their dads into swapping clothes and taking photos and doing some really crazy stuff. But it really is something that from a professional services and an accounting firm can still be of a valuable link into the world for client base.
Well, it's content, and if you can, there you go, Mel just commented. So it's more about the content that you're creating, and you're constantly creating content, however that may be. You know, sort of Ali talks about how she's decided to let people into her personal world. So I'm not sure she's on here, but again, listen to the podcast, because she's decided to let clients into her Instagram account and so when she's going to the gym, and she wants people to know what drives her lifestyle, which will then ideally, maybe the clients will see that, or new clients will see that and say, that's the type of person I want to be my accountant.
Right.
Everyone's different.
Yeah.
And you know, it does take a lot of guts to do that as well. So
yeah,
you've got to put yourself out there. And unfortunately, not all of us are extroverts. But I think you've got to find a way to use good people, smart people, to get really good content out there and just have fun with it. More importantly, I think it's not about being serious anymore. It's just have fun.
Right. Yeah. Well, I always grew up on that you needed to be serious to be considered real. But Melissa's just put another note up there saying that TikTok, you just don't be afraid and have a go. So, look, we're pretty much running out of time. If we allow some time for those who might want to have a question or a comment. So if there are anyone who would like to ask Paul a question, in particular with any of the stuff that he's spoken about, then please, you can either raise your hand or type a message in the chat. And when I say raise the hand, that's the digital hand, not the don't do this, because I can't see everyone. But you can raise your digital hand or type a message in there if you've got a particular question for Paul, or even if someone's got a comment about how they have had fun with TikTok within the professional space. One of the questions Paul Scott's asked is, what was the name of the software for pulse engagement? Yeah,
it's called Ever Perform. So I know even when I did a little bit of work with them, it's now integrated with Xero as well. So I know they've gone out there and done that. So Ever Perform, there's quite a few out there. And I know Ever Perform in particular is, it's not anonymous. So I think for managers to be able to understand if their people are, and there's different views on this, but for us as leaders of businesses to understand how our people are feeling, I think it's important we know where the messages are coming from. So it's not anonymous. So I think, and that's worked really well. I even spoke to the guys out at, who was I talking to the other day? I've gone blank for a second there, but large firm, and they're using it. And some of they've been able to avoid people, even from a mental health point of view. You know, we're sitting here and mental health is massive at the moment, you know, in terms of how we're all working, we're at home, especially if you're in Melbourne. But it is one of those really, really important things that you can just find out where people's mindset are and how you help them. People are just sometimes just asking for help, you know, but what you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, it's certainly a big one, is making sure you know what's going on.
Yep.
And sometimes it's, some people are good at reading it when they walk around the room, and others just they don't want to, they'll type something, but they won't tell you up front. Now, one of the other questions that's just popped up is, what's your take on using social media for content marketing versus paid advertising to drive brand awareness?
I think you can. I think we've. If again, I'll speak from what we've done. So the sun's coming in. Hopefully, it's still okay. We've hardly paid for anything. We've tested a little bit of what we've done. We've tested a little bit with LinkedIn. We've tested a little bit with Facebook. For us, Facebook worked better. LinkedIn was harder to work through, and then they took a lot of money off my credit card when they weren't supposed to. So probably won't do that again. And I think you can do that just by getting your presence out there. And I think engaging with the right people. Once you get your presence out there, it's a funny thing how people will ask you to do like what we're doing right now. If you've got a really good presence and you're doing some really cool things, I say just get it out there and push it out there. But don't try and, what I would do is I'm also a big, if anyone's done Anthony Robbins talks a lot about modeling, so I'm a big fan of modeling. Find out what people are doing successful and model it. Dick Smith has based a lot of his business on that. Find out what they're doing and go and copy it. That's okay. So it is okay to do that. So work out what other people are doing. You're not stealing any intellectual property there, but you're having a look at what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, and you've got a really good message of getting out there and doing it. But get out there and just test it. There's nothing wrong in testing it. No one's ever going to have a go at you for getting out there and doing something out of the norm. And I think nowadays people expect that to a certain extent, and you can still be professional, you can still be fun. Anyone seen our Chewing the Accounting Fat shows? Jason Cunningham is professional, but he has a lot of fun.
Yes.
So anyone that knows Jason. We do a lot of banter, and that's a bit of fun as well.
Yeah. So I got one other question here, which you sort of just touched on there, is thinking about financial services. Do you have any suggestions for a complete beginner on how to start looking at TikTok? I think that's probably a question they need to go to Melissa's podcast and have a listen to that one, because that's certainly they've had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I would say go and look up on LinkedIn, Melissa David. Go and see what you did yesterday with client partners, and again, again they've just done something, and some comments might come through on that. I haven't ventured into TikTok yet. My kids want me to, but I haven't ventured into TikTok yet, and we're just focusing on getting right now some of the stuff on Instagram. So we're just building up our content for Instagram, because we've been fairly active on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. So that's a bit bright, isn't it? We might be finishing up anyway.
Sorry, we're just about finished up. Yeah, mate. We'll have to finish up soon.
But it is. But once you create that, you can get a little bit more fun. Even there's things that, for example, Melissa David and I are doing the push-up challenge at the moment, and a lot of other businesses are doing the push-up challenge at the moment as well. So you can make it fun. If you're doing a TikTok and you're doing the push-up challenge, you can get all the team members in the office to do push-ups at the same time. 30 seconds, throw it out there. It's content, it's fun, it's authentic. You're raising money for mental health. It's all the things that we're doing, which is affecting our lives. And we all know that, it's affecting everybody's life, not just us in Melbourne.
Well, I will start to wrap up now, and there is plenty of messages coming through, and certainly one of the comments is around that it is a little bit, it's out there and it's something different. So you do need to be a little bit brave and to take chances and try these different things. Melissa, who's a bit of an expert, obviously, in this, is saying that it's something about for the next 5 years. So it's obviously got everyone talking accounting and TikTok, mate. So don't worry about growing. We'll just go and do the brand stuff. So
yeah, and the key thing in all that, when you're looking at some of the content as well, and I look at a lot of this, and again, for those of you that have not gone and looked at Simon Sinek's The Why, go and YouTube that, go and Google it, and a lot of people focus on the what but people buy the why. So work out, because I just saw someone talk about a law firm just before. So don't, again, as a parting comment, I suppose, try not to market the what, market the why. So there's a bit of work there that you might take into a planning system. So, well, what is our why? Okay, good. What is our why? We did that internally here, and it's not an easy thing to work through, but when you do that, that's when you can get really clear in your message to the outside market looking in, because that's what they're buying. There's a reason why people buy Apple, because Apple's sexy. You want to be a part of it, and that's what Sinek talks about as well. So it's years old, but go and have a look at it. Simon Sinek, brilliant if you haven't seen it. He does a comparison to Dell and Apple, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. All right, so we'll wrap up there, and I guess the big thing is that if we go back to talking about that either growing or right sizing or whatever your thing is, it really is about getting your mindset right about what you want to do. A version of this for those who want to go back and listen to some of the detail of that will be made available in due course. And I think we've certainly struck a nerve on branding and getting out there. And I think it's really about being brave, show your humility and humanity and have a bit of fun with it all. But and I think it's right. A lot of this content's not actually about, as one of the lawyers said, it's not about your contracts. It's not about what work you do. It's about who you are and why you are. And then the rest will flow from there. And that's different and quite brave. So, look, Paul, I'll finish up there, mate. I really appreciate your time. And it's finding some time in your diary to spend some time with our group and our team has been great. Really appreciate it. So thank you very much for coming along.
Okay.
I think Elise is meant to have something popping up. I'm just speaking to Elise in the background, who's our marketing manager who makes all this work.
There won't be Paul today.
Okay, all right, excellent. So you don't need to tell us how good or bad we've been today, Paul. So we'll just assume we've been good. I do encourage anyone who wants to have a look at some more content around Paul. Go to Professional Partners, his YouTube channels and TV channels. Have a look at all that stuff. It is fantastic. It really do. There's a lot of good content there. And of course, coming back to Jonge, we're really grateful that we've had the opportunity to provide you something outside insolvency to talk about, because that can be a little bit boring. But please, be aware we are here. If you do have clients in any type of stress, we're still well and truly across the country ready to help where we can. So I wish everyone a great rest of their day and a great month, and we'll see you in the next month at our next webinar. So thanks again, Paul. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ashley. My pleasure. Hopefully there was a few little golden nuggets there for everyone, but thanks very much.
I think there are a ton of nuggets in there. So thank you, mate. Really appreciate it. Okay. Thank you all.